علي علي عليك العالي علي موكلي من الرب علي من الصبر.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Dear respected viewers, and a big Mubarak to all our viewers on this auspicious occasion on Eid Al-Ghadeer on behalf of IMAM HUSSEIN TV. Eid Al-Ghadeer is a Eid that is celebrated all over the Middle East and all over the West and all over Australia and Africa. Eid that is very significant to our Shia. It is very important. Rasulullah ﷺ on his final Hajj in the deserts of Arafat was instructed by the angel Jibreel to deliver this important message, a message that would in turn complete the whole of Islam. And as he went to Ghadir Khum, he called for those that were ahead to come back, and for those who were behind to catch up, and delivered this sermon, this great message. But what was this sermon? What was this message? And why is it so important? Why is it only a few communities are celebrating this event, this Eid, and remembering the message of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, remembering the khutbah and what was said as his final khutbah before he departed from this world? I am your host for today, Sheikh Mohamed Abbas Panju, and with me is the honourable, the pious, and my teacher, Sheikh Mohamed Abbas Panju. Sheikh Mohamed, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. La Eid Mubarak to you.
Eid Mubarak to you,
Alhamdulillah alladhi ja'alana min al-mutamassikin bi wilayat Amir al-Mu'mineen. We thank and we praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for blessing us to have the wilayah of Amir al-Mu'mineen. Thank you for having me on the show. It's always an honor to be on IMAM HUSSEIN TV. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you and reward you for all the hard work you do in serving Ahlul Bayt.
Thank you
Insha'Allah.
much. How's your Eid been so far?
Insha'Allah. Alhamdulillah. With your du'as.
So, in regards to Ghadeer, from our traditions, what is the significance of this Eid? Why is it so important?
Absolutely. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. If we want to understand the significance of the day of Ghadeer, it is important for us to contemplate upon those traditions that are narrated to us by Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam himself and from the infallible imams that were designated by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So by way of example, to give our respected viewers an insight and a glimpse into the divinity and the greatness associated with Eid Al-Ghadeer, we take, for example, this tradition that we have in front of us from Kitabul Amali of Sheikh Saduq, where he narrates this tradition on authority of Rasulullah, where he says, Yawmu Ghadeer Khum afdalu a'yadi ummati. Yani Eid Al-Ghadeer, this is the Prophet of Islam saying, Yawmul Ghadeer, Eid Al-Ghadeer is the best Eid to fall upon this ummah. Yani compared to Eid Al-Adha, this Eid that marks the completion of Hajj, Eid Al-Fitr that marks the completion of Shahrul Ramadan, Yawmul Jum'ah, every Friday which is a day of Eid. Yes. You find that Rasulullah says you put all these days of Eid together, Eid Al-Ghadeer is the best by far of all these days of celebration. MashaAllah. Why? Rasulullah goes on to give this.
It's quite a big bold statement.
Absolutely. And he goes on to give the reason. وَهُوَ الْيَوْمُ الَّذِي أَمَرَنِي اللَّهُ تَعَالَى ذِكْرُهُ فِيهِ بِنَسْبِ أَخِي عَلِيَّ بْنَ أَبِي طَالِبٍ عَلَمًا لِأُمَّتِي يَحْتَدُونَ بِهِ. Indeed, this was the day that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala appointed my brother Ali ibn Abi Talib as the alam, yani as the leader or as that avenue through which my ummah would seek guidance after me. وَهُوَ الْيَوْمُ الَّذِي أَكْمَلَ اللَّهُ فِيهِ الدِّينَ وَأَتَمَّ عَلَى أُمَّتِي فِيهِ النِّعْمَةِ وَرَضِيَ لَهُمُ الْإِسْلَامَ دِينًا. This day of Ghadeer is the day that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala completed the religion, number one. Number two, He perfected the religion. Number two, He completed the ni'mah, the bounties, divine bounties of Allah. These bounties that we are not able to count The crown of all these ni'mas was bestowed on this day of Ghadir. And most importantly, says, today was the day that Allah was pleased with Islam as a religion. Now, if you take these words of Rasulullah, and on the other hand, you add to this the words of Imam As-Sadiq, salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayh. Is a narration which is narrated in Wasa'il al-Shi'a, Sheikh al-Amuli, where the sixth Imam speaks about Yawm al-Ghadir. Look at how he describes Eid Al-Ghadeer, 18th of Dhul Hijjah. Yani we know the importance of the day in which we are. He says, وَهُوَ عِيدُ اللَّهِ الْأَكْبَرِ. This is the greatest Eid of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَمَا بَعَثَ اللَّهُ عَزَّ وَجَلَّ نَبِيًّا قَطْ إِلَّا وَتَعَيَّدَ فِي هَذَا الْيَوْمِ وَعَرَفَ حُرْمَتِهِ. There is not a single prophet of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that was sent on earth except that they celebrated, commemorated and rejoiced on the day of Ghadir. Yani the celebration of Eid Al-Ghadeer, Nabi Adam celebrated Eid Al-Ghadeer. Nabi Ibrahim, Nabi Nuh, Nabi Saleh, Nabi Ayyub, Imam Sadiq says all the Anbiya celebrated Eid Al-Ghadeer, which was the appointment of Amir al-Mu'mineen as the rightful leader after Rasulullah.
So are you saying that they celebrated in the time that they were here on earth?
Absolutely, bila shak. And yani, person should not be astonished. The relationship between the Anbiya before Rasulullah, their relationship with Amir al-Mu'mineen. How is it a person could come and ask, how is it that they celebrated Eid al-Ghadeer when they lived years and years before Amir al-Mu'mineen was actually appointed? Yani, there is an important point over here, that the appointment of Amir al-Mu'mineen and this ma'rifah that Amir al-Mu'mineen is the successor of Rasulullah and Sayyidul Awsiya, this appointment and declaration was made in the heavens even before this dunya was created. And we have a hadith in regards to this. Hadith yani from the books of the Amma as well as the books of the Khassa. We have one, for example, a tradition which is narrated by Ibn Mas'ud. Ibn Mas'ud, he states that, this is in Tariq Dimishq, authored by Ibn Asakir. Ibn Asakir from the Amma, he says, Qala Rasulullah, the Holy Prophet, sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. Alayhi wa sallam is from us. He says, Qala Rasulullah, Lamma usriya bi ila as-sama idha malakun atani. فقال لي يا محمد صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد سل الأنبياء على ما بعثوا. Rasulullah says that when on the night of Mi'raj, Isra and Mi'raj, when I was lifted up to the heavens, an angel came to me. And we have in other traditions it was Jibra'il. It says an angel came to me and he said to me, O Muhammad, ask the rest of the Anbiya, because in Mi'raj or in Isra, when Rasulullah was raised up to the heavens in this divine journey, he met with the rest of the Anbiya in the heavens. So when he met with the Anbiya, this angel asks Rasulullah, ask the rest of the Anbiya, ask the rest of the prophets, on what basis were they selected as prophets? So Rasulullah asks them, فَقُلْتْ, yani Rasulullah saying, فَقُلْتْ يَا مَعْشَرَ الرُّسُلِ وَالنَّبِيِّينَ عَلَى مَا بَعَثَكُمُ اللَّهِ. O group of Anbiya, 124,000 prophets minus one, Rasulullah. All these Anbiya before him, he asked them collectively, O prophets of God, on what basis, on what merit were you selected as Anbiya, as prophets? قالوا على ولايتك وولاية علي ibn Abi Talib. They said, Ya Rasulullah, we were selected because of our attestation in your wilaya, in your leadership, and in the wilaya, in the leadership of Ali ibn Abi Talib. Yani what we understand with this, together with a number of other traditions, that in this realm of existence, Alam al-Dhar and Alam al-Mithaq, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala took a covenant and a pledge from the Anbiya in regards to the wilayah of Rasulullah and the wilayah of Amir al-Mu'mineen. Yani, Adam became Safwatullah because he said, Aliyun waliyullah, ashhadu anna Aliya waliyullah. Ibrahim became Khalilullah because he said, Ashhadu anna Aliya waliyullah. Musa became Kalimullah because he said, Ashhadu anna Aliya waliyullah. Isa became Ruhullah because he said, Aliyu waliyullah. And Isa, Nabi Isa, is that awaited prophet who will come and recite salat behind the grandson of Amir al-Mu'mineen, Ali ibn Abi Talib, the Mahdi. So this celebration of Eid Al-Ghadeer is a culture, is a celebration that has been commemorated on earth from the beginning of human history. And in this, before the creation of the earth, it was a celebration there in the heavens. This is a glimpse of the divinity of Eid Al-Ghadeer and the 18th day of Dhul Hijjah that we have.
MashaAllah, Shaykhna, MashaAllah.
Barakallah feekum.
I think most of us are touched spiritually by your answer.
Alhamdulillah.
This discussion.
These are from the words of Ahlul Bayt.
A lot of people
Alhamdulillah wa
wouldn't
shukr.
understand about Ghadeer and the importance it has in the heavens, never mind on earth. But as you were saying, Ghadeer was, some say, the declaration of Amir al-Mu'mineen as the successor of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that?
Absolutely. Historians have ittifaq, are in agreement in regards to the fact that when Rasulullah embarked upon the journey of the final Hajj that he performed in his life, the year before he was martyred, this is known as Hajjatul Wida. So as Rasulullah was going for this Hajj, and it was through this Hajj that he would teach them a lot of the manasik of the Hajj in itself as a farida. You find that Ansars and Ashab, the Ashab of Rasulullah from all different parts of the Islamic lands, wherever Islam had reached, they all gathered together to come towards Mecca to be in the company of Rasulullah as he performs the manasikul Hajj. And what greater honor than for a person to perform the Hajj with the Holy Prophet of Islam himself. And the narrations mention as he completed the manasikul Hajj and they were returning back to Medina, Rasulullah with his companions. Some of the historians are of the opinion that at that time the number of companions who accompanied the Rasulullah in the Hajj was close to 100,000 people from all parts of the Islamic lands. And as they were returning back from Mecca, having completed the rites of Hajj, the manasikul Hajj, 3 miles before a place known as Juhfa, at a place Ghadir al-Khum, Rasulullah stopped his caravan. Now we got to understand that even in regards to the travel routes that used to be used, look at how Rasulullah is planning out this event. He stops at a place which is extremely strategic, in the sense that in the travel route, people would come from different parts of the Islamic world. From Mecca, if they were to return back to their homelands, the travel route would be a single shared travel route from Medina up to Juhfa. And it is from Juhfa that the different people would then scatter to different parts of their final destination. Excuse me. So people who had come, for example, from the lands of Iraq, people who had come from the land of Sham, for example, or different parts of Hijaz, they would, from Medina, if they were returning back to their hometowns, the travel route would be the same, from Medina up to Juhfa. Juhfa now was the point of separation, where they would travel to their own different ways. So as Rasulullah was reaching Juhfa, 3 miles before that, at this place called Ghadir al-Khum, Rasulullah stopped. And then he made an announcement. Those people, because there are 100,000 odd people, so they are not, exactly, they are not all traveling at the same speed, at the same pace. There are some who have gone a little bit more forward, there are those who are still lagging behind. You can imagine. So Rasulullah stops at Ghadir Khum and he makes an announcement where he says, all those companions of ours who have gone ahead towards Juhfa, before they separate to go to their own hometowns and their own separate travel routes, call them back. So those who have gone ahead, call them back. And he said, we wait here until those who are left behind are able to join up with us. They congregate at this place, Ghadeer Khom, at this place, Khom, 100,000 odd companions of Rasulullah. And you find that historians mention this event is happening 5 hours into the time of, or after the time of Fajr. So from the time of sunrise, you count 5 hours, pretty much here and there, it's about noon time.
Yes.
The sun or the heat is at its peak.
Yes.
Rasulullah doesn't do anything out of ignorance, wal-ayadhu billah. It is the peak of perfection, it is the peak of intellect. Every move of Rasulullah is selected with a particular wisdom. Look at the place that he has chosen strategic. The time that he has chosen where the heat is unbearable. Now, the Quran describes Rasulullah as being rahmatul lil alameen. Wa ma arsalnaka illa rahmatan lil alameen. You can imagine that a prophet who is merciful, if he has stopped a congregation of 100,000 people in the dead heat of the day, he must have stopped them for a pretty important reason.
Yes, definitely.
So he stops them there. He asks for a mimbar, for a platform or for a pulpit to be constructed for him. Historians say that the tree was, there were some trees, it was a place with a number of trees, date trees. Some of the trees were used to make a mimbar, a pulpit, and there's some historians who say that the saddles of the horses were actually collected such that nobody could leave. They couldn't be able to ride their donkeys or their horses if they didn't have their saddles. And in my opinion, both these traditions are correct, because it was very possible that the pulpit was constructed from both these materials, to say so. So a mimbar is constructed, or a pulpit is constructed for Rasulullah, and then he begins to deliver a sermon. And in this sermon, you will find that for our viewers, for myself, for yourself, the khutbah of Ghadeer is an extremely important khutbah for us to be familiar with. So,
in regards to the actual location of Ghadeer, I mean, I heard it's an oasis, that there's there's a pond, some say that there's some wells there. I mean, was it in the middle of the desert where there was nothing there, or just a few trees, or was it there was some sort of life there actually for the people to stop in that location?
Sure. The fact that this place of Khom was 3 miles before Juhfa, and generally speaking, the geography between Mecca and Juhfa is barren desert. However, this land or this area of Ghadeer Khom was distinguished in the sense that it had an oasis, and where there is an oasis, you find that there is growth of palm trees. So it looked like it would be the strategic resting place before people got to Juhfa, in that sense.
Also, I want to mention, for those of you who've actually been to Hajj, there's Masjid Al-Ghadeer near Juhfa, isn't it? A lot of people put their ihram on there before they go off to
Juhfa
Hajj.
in itself, yes, being one of the points of Miqat, yes.
Anyway, about the sermon, please continue. Rasulullah now has constructed a member from the saddles and the trees. It's the middle of the day, scorching heat.
Scorching heat. People are wondering, why is it that the Holy Prophet of Islam has now stopped us here? What's going on? We've completed our Hajj. We're looking to go back home. The dead heat of the day. It's still not yet time for Salatul Dhuhr. So something Prophet has assembled the people for what seems to be a very important reason. And he begins delivering the sermon. As I was saying, to get a glimpse of this sermon, it's important for us to study and analyze and understand the sermon of Ghadeer. And you'll find that this sermon, a version of this sermon is available in Kitabul Ihtijaj by Allama Tabarsi, rahmatullah alayh. Kitabul Ihtijaj in itself is a classical text when it comes to understanding aspects of Usuluddin, the various different debates, conversations and arguments, logical arguments that the Prophet and the A'imma had with their opponents, be them atheists, be them disbelievers in wilaya or any of the sort. You find that the author Allama Tabarsi rahmatullah alayh has compiled all these conversations and debates and these eloquent proofs that Ahlul Bayt came with when it came to establishing the validity of this religion and the validity or the supremacy of Ahlul Bayt. Kitab al-Ihtijaj is a very important text for each and every one of us to be familiar with and to study. So within Kitab al-Ihtijaj, you have the sermon of Ghadeer. This sermon of Ghadeer is narrated to us by our fifth Imam Al-Baqir, salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayh, within the chain of narrators. So Rasulullah begins by praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He talks about Tawheed, the concept of Tawheed. He talks to the Muslims about the commandments which he has preached over the last 23 years, from the aspects of Salat and the aspects of Sawm, the aspects of Hajj which they have just completed, Amra bil Ma'ruf, Nahi anil Munkar. And when he addresses them, he says to them, and it seems that the call from my Lord has come and it is time for me to respond to him. An indication that Rasulullah is not going to be with us on this earth for much longer. And hence the idea is that what is understood is that this sermon, this khutbah of Rasulullah is a summary of Islam in its entirety, an emphasis, re-emphasis on the teachings of Islam in its entirety, the importance of having taqwa, the importance of belief in the day of judgment. And then the Holy Prophet comes forward and he says that there is a message that I have been commanded by Jibreel to deliver to you. And Jibreel has commanded me to deliver this message 3 times. And yet the Prophet says, I have been reluctant. Reluctant not in the sense that the Holy Prophet has any deficiency within him, wal-ayadu billah, but for out of hikmah, the concerns that Rasulullah has. And for the concerns that I have not delivered this message until right now. And he says, I am aware that there are munafiqeen amongst you, there are hypocrites amongst you, and there are those who are going to challenge and deny this message that I am going to give to you. But you need to understand that this is a command from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You are paraphrasing the thoughts that are captivated within this sermon. And then you find that Rasulullah begins to speak about Amirul Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib. You know, if you look at this khutbah, it's about 15-20 odd pages.
Okay.
Scholarship, perhaps it would have taken Rasulullah maybe about, this is from speculation, it could have taken Rasulullah about an hour and a half to deliver this khutbah. When you look through Kitab al-Ihtijaj, from a very quick glimpse and a very brief analysis that I performed, found that within the khutbah of Ghadeer, which lasted approximately an hour and a half, Rasulullah mentions Amirul Mu'mineen 38 times.
MashaAllah. Subhanallah. Subhanallah.
Imagine, let's put this into perspective. In the Janabak, you go for a majlis. Majlis time is 1 hour, 60 minutes. Within this 1 hour, the speaker mentions Amirul Mu'mineen 38 times.
Wow.
So you can imagine the importance granted to Amirul Mu'mineen by Rasulullah. He directly refers to Amirul Mu'mineen towards the companions. One time he mentions Amirul Mu'mineen, he praises him for the knowledge that he has. Another time he praises Amirul Mu'mineen for the jihad that he has performed. Another time he praises Amirul Mu'mineen for being the first believer. Another time he praises Amirul Mu'mineen as being the most elevated and honorable one from amongst the companions. And then he goes on to tell them that Amirul Mu'mineen is the Imam after me who is appointed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He goes on to say, do not challenge Amirul Mu'mineen. Be loyal to Amirul Mu'mineen. Obey Amirul Mu'mineen. In fact, he goes on to say that your belief and your obedience towards Amirul Mu'mineen is an essential part of the deen. In one part of the khutbah, Rasulullah says to them, Ma'ashir an-nas, فَذِّلُوهُ فَقَدْ فَضَّلَهُ اللَّهُ وَأَقْبِلُوهُ فَقَدْ نَصَبَهُ اللَّهُ. Honor him, Ali, because Allah has honored him. And he says, accept him, accept his leadership, accept his authority, because Allah has placed him in authority. Rasulullah goes on to say, Ma'ashir an-nas, innahu imamun min Allah. He is the imam appointed by Allah. وَلَنْ يَتُوبُ اللَّهُ عَلَىٰ أَحَدٍ أَنْكَرَ وِلَايَتَهُ. Allah shall not accept the repentance of anyone who rejects the wilayah of Amirul Mu'mineen. Lan yatub, lam noon. This is from the particles of negation. Lam noon, yani meaning never. Now and in the future, Rasulullah is saying to them, as companions, as believers, as monotheists. So we understand one of the conditions of tawbah to be accepted is the wilayah of Amirul Mu'mineen. You can imagine the essence of this khutbah and the message that Rasulullah is delivering. 38 times at the minimum, Rasulullah speaks about Amirul Mu'mineen, the position of Amirul Mu'mineen. He introduces Ahlul Bayt. In this khutbah of Yawm Al-Ghadeer, Rasulullah introduces Imam Al-Mahdi, Ajjalallahu Ta'ala Farajahu Sharif. Inshallah, if Allah blesses us with another opportunity, we can speak about this sermon and Yawm Al-Ghadeer, how Allah, in addition to establishing the wilayah of Amirul Mu'mineen in particular, he establishes the wilayah of Ahlul Bayt in general. Having mentioned all this, Rasulullah then says to the people, Alastu awla bikum min anfusikum? Do I not have more authority over you than you have over yourselves? And this is in reference to Surah Al-Ahzab, verse number 6, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, An-Nabiyyu awla bil mu'minina min anfusihim. The Prophet has more authority over the believers than they have over themselves. If I want something and Rasulullah says, do it or don't do it, yani the will of Rasulullah supersedes my own individual will. The interests of Rasulullah supersede my own interest. This is the meaning of the word awla. So he asks the people, Alastu awla bikum min anfusikum? Reminding them in reference to Surah Al-Ahzab, verse number 6. All of them, hadith mentioned, replied back, Bala ya Rasulallah. And immediately, as soon as they attested that Rasulullah has more authority over them than they have upon themselves, he raises the hand of Amirul Mu'mineen, Ali ibn Abi Talib, and he says to them, Man kuntu mawla fahada aliyun mawla. The one who accepts me to be their master, then Ali is their master. And look at the derivatives that are used within this word, awla and mawla. Yani mawla is used over here to show the interpretation of, or the word, to show the meaning of the word awla. Yani, for those of you who submit and believe that Rasulullah has more authority than you over yourself, then know that Ali now also has more authority over you than you have over yourself. And this was the declaration of the authority of Amirul Mu'mineen as the Imam after Rasulullah, as the rightful Khalifa who will undertake the responsibility of leadership after Rasulullah. Within this khutbah, it's a fabulous khutbah. There are indications towards the wilayah that Amirul Mu'mineen has, wilayah takwiniya and wilayah tashri'iyya, and alhamdulillah. But as a summary, this is the epic and this is the peak of Eid Al-Ghadeer, in the sense that it was the declaration of Rasulullah in regards to the position, the leadership and the authority of Amirul Mu'mineen after him. Alhamdulillah.
So in regards to Ghadeer, the sermon and the event of Ghadeer, is this exclusive for the Shia, or do other schools of thought narrate this? Do they accept this?
La, this is, you will find that there is ittifaq amongst the Muslimin in regards to the event of Ghadir. This is an event that is narrated not only by ulama from the Ahl Shia, from the Khassa, but as well as ulama from the Amma. In fact, you find that this is the event of Ghadir, is one of those events in history that has reached a level of tawatur that perhaps no other event in history has reached.
Could you explain briefly to the viewers what tawatur actually means?
Tawatur means that it has been so popularly, famously being narrated by numerous amounts of people across the passage of time, such that the chances of it being fabricated or the chances of this incident not being true or not being occurred is totally demolished. The numerous avenues through which this narration has been, or this historical event has been recorded, it's been recorded from so many avenues, numerous avenues, there is absolutely no chance to deny its occurrence. Tawatur, there cannot be an ounce of shak in this.
MashaAllah, MashaAllah. So, I mean, like you were saying with the hadith, is it only the Shia? Or
No.
does everyone have it? Do you have any specific narrations from the Ahlul Sunnah? Can you give examples of that? It is mentioned here and here.
Absolutely. I will read out for you a passage, a very small passage that we have over here, and I will read you the masadir as well. This is taken from Musnad Ahmad ibn Hanbal. Ahmad ibn Hanbal, the leader of the Hanbali school of thought.
Yes.
So in his Musnad, he mentions the incident of Eid Al-Ghadeer, where he says, فقال يعني رسول الله ألستم تعلمون أني أولى بالمؤمنين من أنفسهم. He says, do you not know that I have more authority over the believers than they have over themselves? فقالوا بلى. The people said yes. فقال, who? The Holy Prophet. ألستم تعلمون أني أولى بكل مؤمن من نفسه, that I have more authority than every one of these believers over themselves? قالوا بلى. فأخذ, the Holy Prophet, so he raised, فأخذ بيد علي, he took the hands of Ali, فقال من كنت مولى فعلي مولاه. And he says, he adds to this, Allahumma wali man wala wa adi man adah. Ya Allah, you be a supporter for the one who supports Ali, and be an enemy for the one who is an enemy to Ali.
MashaAllah, Shaykh. Very, very interesting, very, very hot topic right now. But to the viewers, please, we're going on a little break, but please stay tuned and please continue watching the Ghadeer Sermon Show as we will continue this discussion. Thank you very much and see you after the break. Assalamu
علي عالي على كل عالي علي موكلي من الرب علي ما
Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to the Ghadeer Sermon. I'm here with my guest, the Honourable Sheikh Mohamed Abbas Panju. Sheikh, now you were talking about Sunni sources and especially Imam Hanbal,
Sure.
and what he was saying. Could you please continue and elaborate a little?
So this part of the khutbah, declaration of Rasulullah, Alastu awla bikum min anfusikum, and the people respond by saying yes, and then immediately he goes on to say, Man kuntum mawla fahada aliyum mawla, whosoever whose master I am, then Ali is his master. From the non-Shia scholars who have narrated this historical event, one of them is Ahmad ibn Hanbal, the leader of the Hanbali school of thought, in his writings, the Musnad. And he is one of very many who mentions this. If you look at other scholars or other books, Sunni books in which this historical incident is mentioned, one of them is number one, this hadith has been authenticated as being sahih by Albani.
Okay.
Albani being one of the greatest scholars from the Amma. So Albani mentions this hadith even from the perspective of a sanad, chain of narrators, as being sahih, in which there is no doubt in the authenticity or the credibility of this. Furthermore, this event of Ghadeer is mentioned in texts such as Majma'u Zawaid, Al-Mustadrak, Sawa'iq al-Muhrika, Kunzul Ummal, for example, Tariq Baghdad, Safwatul Safwa by Ibn Jawzi. Ibn Jawzi, a person who was a Nasibi in his lifetime, much as a Nasibi that he was, even he was not able to omit the event of Ghadir in his writings. You have Bidaya wa Nihaya, Al-Kafi al-Shafi by Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani. Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani spent a great part of his life attacking the madhab of Ahlul Bayt and attacking the Shia, working towards ensuring that this was a sect that would be ordained with kufr. Yet even the likes of Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani were not able to omit the occurrence of the advent of Ghadir. And then there is Tariq Dimishq and Khasa'is Amirul Mu'mineen by An-Nisa'i, Kifayatul Talib by Al-Kanji Al-Shafi'i, Manaqib Ali ibn Abi Talib ibn al-Maghazili, Shawahidul Tanzil, Yanabi'ul Mawadda, even As-Suyuti. Suyuti, he was one of the greatest mufassirin of the Amma. In his writing known as Tariq al-Khulafa, he mentions this advent of Eid Al-Ghadeer and how Rasulullah said, Man kuntu mawla fahada aliyum mawla. And then there is Tafsir Tha'labi, and the list goes on and on. These are just a few to name, and these texts are available. These are available, readily available for our viewers to go and to research and bring up these texts. We could even provide page numbers, but because editions vary from reprints and so on and so forth. But the reality and the event is mentioned in all these texts of the Sunnah in regards to the occurrence of Ghadir.
I see, very interesting, especially with like Al-Bayani and Suyuti. These are very, very big, famous scholars in the Sunni school of thought.
Absolutely.
And that they can't even change. So, why is it then that those who are non-Shia don't accept the sermon of Ghadir or the authority of Amir al-Mu'mineen? Could one argue it is to do with the word Mawla, that it means friend? It doesn't mean as a master or a supreme authority.
Sure.
So, what do you think is the issue, that why people aren't accepting the correct message in its context? And furthermore, how do we argue with these people and disprove these people?
Sure. Over here, Habibi said, Mohsin, there are two important points that you have raised. Number one is that how come a majority of the people do not know? It is not surprising that throughout the period of history, the general masses, particularly after the event of Saqifa, until today, the reality has been hidden from them. Majority of the general people, majority of perhaps even the scholars, are not familiar with their own literature or are not familiar with their own books of history that clearly outline the events such as Eid Al-Ghadeer. I'll give you an example. If you have come across the text Peshawar Nights, it's a fantastic text to read. And I think that this is a book which is absolutely important, just like the way we have Quran and Nahjul Balagha and Mafatihul Jinan. Peshawar Nights is a book in which every Shia needs to have in his house.
Available in English as well.
Available in English, available online, hard copy text. It's practically everywhere and in multiple languages. Alhamdulillah wa shukr. Peshawar Nights, it's one of our ulama who goes to Peshawar. He has a sit down, a debate and a discussion in regards to the school of Ahlul Bayt, and then these later were then compiled to make a book.
And this is quite recent as well. It's like early 1900s. It's not a very, very old text.
Absolutely, within the last 100 years or so. And you find that when the Sayyid is debating with the Sunni scholar who is given the title of Hafidh. Hafidh yani what? Hafidh, the title given because they have memorized an X number of hadith. And when they discuss, you read this in the book Peshawar Nights, when they come to the discussion of Eid Al-Ghadeer, and the Sayyid puts forth for them the advent of Eid Al-Ghadeer, that this is what happened, and Rasulullah said, Man kuntu mawla fahada aliyum mawla. The Hafidh himself, who is supposed to be the top-notch scholar, the Mufti of the time of Peshawar at that time, he turns around to the Sayyid and he says to them, well, if Ghadir happened and Rasulullah said, Man kuntu mawla fahada aliyum mawla, how come we are not aware? Now, if the Mufti of Peshawar, who is the top scholar, doesn't have an idea of what happened in Eid Al-Ghadeer, and how do you expect the normal awam, the normal people who are not as studied in religion to know? And this is not only for Eid Al-Ghadeer, even for Ashura. You'll find that there was one time the scholar in Syria, and there was a very famous clip of him on YouTube, where he came out in public and he went ballistic. He said, why is it that our teachers have hidden from us the reality of Ashura? Now, if the reality of the faith is hidden from the scholars, then imagine the general people.
Exactly.
Yeah, we don't blame them to that certain extent, but it becomes everyone's responsibility to study from primary text the religion and the reality of this deen. So this is one answer, that majority of the people are hidden from the truth. They themselves have not studied enough. This truth has not been exposed to them. They've not had access to the truth. And this is where you and I come in, and perhaps if we have chance towards the end of the program, speak about the responsibility of tabligh upon each and every one of us. However, the second objection that you raised is an objection which is the
word
a real objection. It is a current objection throughout time, that the word Mawla is interpreted as friend. So people come forward and they share, particularly from the Nawasib and from the Amma, because you cannot negate the occurrence of the occurrence of Ghadeer, keeping in mind all these texts. Their own scholars have mentioned it. So being mutawatir without doubt, they come forward and they say, yes, Ghadeer happened, but it really isn't such a big deal as you seem to make it in the Shia. Ajib. Why? Because they come and they say, La, Mawla doesn't mean master, Mawla means friend. So what Rasulullah essentially did in Eid Al-Ghadeer is that he declared Amirul Mu'mineen to be the friend. He declared Ali ibn Abi Talib to be the friend of the Mu'mineen. Nothing more than that. Linguistically speaking, does the word Mawla mean friend? Yes. Mawla is one of those words that has multiple meanings. It can mean master, it can also mean slave. It can mean friend, it can mean companion, depending on the context in which it is used. We come forward and there are multiple answers, Habibi Sayyid. Perhaps, I remember one of our colleagues in the Hawza, he was putting together a book in which he was bringing about at least 30 to 40 qara'in, indicators, through which you are able to establish that the usage of the word Mawla means master. And even in Peshawar Nights, you find that the Sayyid comes forward with a number of arguments, indications, qarina, yani plural qara'in, to come forward and show that the word Mawla actually means master. We will go through one of them. We establish the fact and we assert the fact that the word Mawla means master and not friend. Why? Because as soon as Rasulullah made the declaration, Man kuntu Mawla fahada aliyum Mawla, Allahumma wali man wala wa adiman ada, he commanded the companions to give bay'ah to Rasulullah, to Amirul Mu'mineen. Why would you give bay'ah, pledge of allegiance to a friend? And this is not within our books. This is also found within the books of the Amma. So you come, for example, I'm referring to Mawsu'atul Ghadeer. Mawsu'atul Ghadeer, if our viewers are able to see, this is authored by Allama Al-Amini, Rahmatullah alayh. And he's put forward together this encyclopedia of Eid Al-Ghadeer to prove the mastership and the wilayah of Amirul Mu'mineen from our sources, from sources of non-Shia, and this is something definitely for everyone to be familiar with. So in volume 2 of the edition that I have, he comes forward and he puts down this narration. This historian, it's أخرج الإمام الطبري محمد ابن جرير في كتاب الولاية. Tabari is an authenticated, high-level, credible scholar from the Sunnah
school of thought, yes.
Sunni school of thought. Tabari, well-known, Tariq Tabari is the author of that famous history, where he says, Rasulullah said, Ma'ashar al-nas kulu أعطيناك على ذلك أحدا عن أنفسنا وميثاقا بألسنتنا وصفقة بأيدينا. So after Rasulullah made the declaration, Man kuntu Mawla fahada aliyu Mawla, he said to the people, O people, repeat after me, say that we give you a pledge with our souls. And we give you a covenant with our tongues. And we shall give you a handshake with, yani, we shall shake our hand, yani a covenant. نُؤَدِّيهِ إِلَىٰ أَوْلَادِنَا وَأَهْلِينَا. And this is a covenant and a pledge that we take on ourselves and on our children and on our families. لَا نُبْغِي بِذَلِكَ بَدَلًا. We shall never replace this covenant. We shall never retract from this covenant. وَأَنْتَ يَا رَسُولُ اللَّهِ. And you, O Holy Prophet, شَهِيدٌ عَلَيْنَا. You are witness over us. وَكَفَى بِاللَّهِ شَهِيدًا. And it's sufficient that God is witness over us. Why would you take a pledge of allegiance? Why would you take a oath and a covenant and then pass this covenant on to your children? For a friend? Look through human history. I don't think you will find a covenant like this just in regards to a friendship. And then he goes on to say, Rasulullah said, "Qulu ma qultu lakum." Repeat what I said to you. وَسَلِّمُوا عَلَىٰ عَلِيٍّ بِإِمْرَةِ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ. And greet Ali as the Amirul Mu'mineen, as the master, as the leader, as the chief of the believers, as the commander of the believers. وَقُولُوا الْحَمْدُ لِلَّهِ الَّذِي هَدَانَا لِهَذَا وَمَا كُنَّا لِنَهْتَدِيَ لَوْلَا أَنْ هَدَانَا اللَّهُ. And thank Allah for this hidayah, for this guidance that He has granted you. And had it not been for Allah, you would not have been guided towards this. Yani guidance, meaning what? Hidayah, to do with Jannah and Jahannam. Can a person's destiny of Jannah and Jahannam be merely on the fact that Rasulullah just declared him a friend? And then he goes on to say, Qala Zayd bin Arqam. So At-Tabari now is reporting on what Zayd ibn Arqam says. فَعِنْدَ ذَلِكَ بَادَرَ النَّاسِ بِقَوْلِهِمْ نَعَمْ سَمِعْنَا وَأَطِعْنَا عَلَى أَمْرِ اللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ بِقُلُوبِنَا. He says, and that we agreed to the Holy Prophet. People came forward, they said to the Prophet, we have heard and we obey you on this command of Allah with all our hearts. وَكَانَ أَوَّلْ مَنْ سَافَكَ النَّبِيِّ وَعَلِيًّا أَبُو بَكْرٍ وعمر وعثمان وطلحة وزبير وباقي المهاجرين والأنصار وباقي الناس إلى أن صلى الظهر, until the end. And the first people to come forward and to shake the hand of Rasulullah and Amirul Mu'mineen on this covenant was Abu Bakr, Umar, Uthman, Talha and Zubair.
So they were actually, they gave bay'ah as well to Imam Ali.
Absolutely.
According to Tariq Tabari.
Yes, not Tariq Tabari. Tabari himself in Kitabul Wilaya.
Okay.
And then Tabari records again, وَرَوَاهُ Ahmad ibn Muhammad al-Tabari الشهير بالخليلي. Right? Another one of the scholars in his book, Kitab Manaqib Ali ibn Abi Talib. He goes forward and he says, فَتَبَادَرَ النَّاسِ إِلَى بَيْعَتِهِ. People came forward, tabadaru, they came forward rushing towards the bay'ah of Ali. And they said, وَقَالُوا سَمِعْنَا وَأَطَعْنَا لِمَا أَمَرَنَا اللَّهُ وَرَسُولَهُ بِقُلُوبِنَا وَأَنفُسِنَا وَأَلْسِنَتِنَا وَجَمِيعِ جَوَارِحِنَا. We obey the command of Allah and His Prophet with our heart, with our souls, with our tongues and with our entire body, yani with our entire essence. ثم انكبوا على رسول الله وعلى علي بأيديهم وكان أول من سافك رسول الله أبو بكر وعمر وطلحة والزبير. So yani bay'ah was given. There is another narration over here and this one is by Hafidh Abu Bakr Abdullah ibn Muhammad ibn Abi Shaybah, who died in 235 AH. So he is from one of those scholars who lived during the times of our A'immah. He comes forward in his book Musannif Anil Bara'a. He says, Kunna ma'a Rasulallah fi safarin fanazala bi Ghadeer khum fanudiya salat jami'a. He mentions the entire advent of Ghadeer, alastum ta'lamuna anni awla bi kulli mu'minin min nafsihi qalu bala fa'akhadha bi yadi Ali. He took the hand of Ali and said, Allahumma man kuntu mawla fa aliyun mawla, Allahumma wali man wala wa adi man ada. Falakiyahu Umar ibn Khattab came to him and he said to Ali, Haniyan laka yabna Abi Talib, asbahta wa amsayta mawla kullu mu'minin wa mu'mina. You have become the Mawla, the master of every believing man, mu'min and mu'mina. Why would there be a handshake and an oath and a covenant? And over here, as you find within the words of Ahmad ibn Muhammad al-Tabari, who is famously known as Khalili, in his kitab Manakib, فَتَبَادَرَ النَّاسِ إِلَى بَيْعَتِهِ, in the Pledge of Allegiance. So what is understood and what the people understood at that time, that this was a declaration of authority for which a Pledge of Allegiance was necessary to give. And you find the same thing in the regards to Ahmad ibn Hanbal as well, he mentions, and the sources are many.
MashaAllah, MashaAllah, Sheikh. Is ajib, yani, that, you know, certain people pledge allegiance, certain people came and congratulated Imam Ali alayhi salam on his status and him becoming Amir al-Mu'mineen and the successor. Like after the death, there was a different story. You know, a lot of people turned on their heels.
And this is one of the greatest tragedies of Islam. And this was foretold within the Quran, that you know, if the Prophet was to die or if he was to be killed, in qalabtum ala a'qabikum, would you turn then back on your heels? Wa qalilum min ibadi ash-shakur. Very few of my servants are thankful. Thankful yani remain steadfast on the same path. This is known within history, Habibi Sayyidina, that the people of truth have always been in the minority. Human history, look, how many people were there with Nabi Nuh on the ark? Minority. How many people were with Imam Hussein? Minority. How many people are going to be with Imam al-Hujjah as the initial Ansar and the Ashab compared to the global world population? Minority. And so the same thing when it happens in Saqifa, it is not something that we need to be astonished. Human nature, overcome by greed, overcome by jealousy, overcome by the power of love. Excuse me. And this is it. Again, if you refer back to Peshawar Nights, you will even find the source from the Sunni historian where he says that Jibra'il came down. Umar ibn Khattab attests that Jibra'il came down in the form of a human being and emphasized on the bay'ah of Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib, salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhi.
Subhanallah. Shaykhana, thank you very much. That's all we have time for.
Salamakumullah.
And to all our viewers, thank you for joining us for the Ghadeer sermon. And on behalf of myself, on behalf of the Shaykh and of the channel, we wish you a pleasant and a splendid Eid Al-Ghadeer, wherever you are and however you're celebrating. And to remember the sermon, and if you can, to get a hold of the context, to get a hold of some work, some articles or some sources to read Ghadeer and to learn and to familiarize yourself with the sermon and what Rasulullah ﷺ was trying to emphasize in his sermon and his final message. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh.
علي عليك العالي علي موكلي من الراس